I'd like to thank our platinum sponsors for this event, and we have the Griffin Advantage, and we have Empire Life. So we're going to round this up. Clearly, an event like this does not come together without the help of an army. And my army was my board of directors from the Advocis chapter, and more importantly, the committee that has been working tirelessly for the course of this is about a year that we've been planning this event. I'd like to give a special thank you to Travis Manning and Natalie Farman. On a personal note, I had the pleasure of having dinner with our 6 guests last night. And folks, buckle in. I hope you guys are ready because this is going to be a fun day. You'll notice our programs that we have on the table. After each speaker's bio, there's a piece of lined paper. All I'm saying is that I hope it's enough. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to also introduce our mayor, Rick Goldring, that is here, and he's going to be saying a couple of words.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here, and I want to give everybody a warm welcome to the City of Burlington for this amazing, inspiring educational event. Having 5 past presidents of $1 Million Roundtable is truly a treat. I'm certainly thrilled to be here as mayor of the city and welcome you to our city. We're very proud of Burlington, as you are of your communities. For the last 5 years, Burlington has been ranked as the very best medium-sized city in which to live across Canada by Money Sense magazine. And for a number of reasons. Number one, surprisingly, we had pretty good weather. And another major component to that is the fact that we are in the safest regional municipality in all of Canada, the region of Hull. So we're very fortunate on a number of fronts. We have an amazing waterfront in Lake Ontario and Burlington Bay in our front yard, and our backyard includes the Niagara Escarpment and the Mount Emo Plateau, Bruce Trail, great golf courses, and unique hamlets and villages. And that represents, our rural area represents 50% of our 185 square kilometers. And that's actually in the green belt. We want to keep it that way. What it does mean is we're going to grow within our urban boundary. We're going to grow around and we can't grow out anymore because we're done with greenfield subdivision type development. So we're growing differently through intensification, infill, and redevelopment around our GO stations, as well as in our downtown. There's tremendous benefits to that. Our walkable, compact, transit-supportive, mixed-use communities encourage healthier lifestyles and lower greenhouse gas emissions on a per capita basis. So I'm thrilled to be here to talk a little bit about Burlington, but I'm really thrilled to be here as somebody who grew up in the life insurance business. I joined Sun Life in 1979, and I've got a lot of history here, and I'm looking around the room and I see Mike Evers, who is with at Sun Life. I look at Rod Millard, we worked together at Manulife. I look at Renee Pappen, who was at Manulife. I look at Doug Lane as well, and a number of familiar faces here. I'm pleased to be here. But I started in 1979 with Sun Life, and I was not very good at the beginning. I really struggled with confidence. I graduated from Master University in 1979 with a major in economics. I say I probably majored in beer and pinball. I didn't really work that hard at school. But anyway, I got an opportunity to join Sun Life. But the year that I was graduating from a master and joined Sun Life, I went to my very first Toronto District Sales Conference. In those days, that was a big deal. That was huge. And after that day, I decided, yes, I'm definitely joining the life insurance business. I was enthralled, I was enthused, and I was inspired. And I remember that very first Toronto Sales Conference. The very first speaker was a guy by the name of Larry Kinlan from Sarnia Mutual Life, 1979. And it was amazing that day. He spoke so passionately about the business and how important it is. He was the first speaker of the day. And at the end, this song comes on by Anne Murray. It's good to see Raj Muck over there as well. I've known him for a long time. But anyway, You Needed Me. Anne Murray's song, You Needed Me, comes on. And he pauses, he lets the music roll and volume. And he says, this is what this business is all about. People needing business each and every day. Agents and managers, and mothers and fathers and children and aunts and uncles, going on and on and on. And If we don't go out there and serve the people the way they need to be served each and every day, Trude and the boys are going to do it for us. Well, some things never change. Call it financial planning, call it selling life insurance, call it whatever you want to call it. This is a noble profession. You have the opportunity to help people address issues that they would never address without your guidance. So I'm very thankful I chose to be a life insurance agent. My involvement in the business has certainly contributed to me being mayor. And I ran for election 3 times municipally, once as a councillor and twice as mayor. And I'm running again next year for my 3rd time as mayor. And, thank you very much. I wish my opponents could hear that. But anyway, whenever I run for election, and certainly next year won't be any different, is you always got to have a plan B, right? When you're in politics, you always got to have a plan B. But I like to say it this way. I have a plan A1 and a plan A2. It's not a plan B. It's a plan A1 and a plan A2. And either door I go down, whether it's re-elected or I go back in the business, I'm okay with that. Because I would be, at one level, I'd be thrilled to be back in the business as well. It's a great business. And someday I hope to be back in business. And anyway, John, I've said enough. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I know we're in for a very inspiring day, and I hope to stay with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Goldring. So without further ado, let's get going. I'm going to call upon our MC, Travis Manning.
Hello. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Mayor Goldring, for your opening remarks. Hello again, and welcome to Taste of MDRT President's Edition. As you figured, my name is Travis Manning. I'm also the sponsorship chair for the local Hamilton Advocis chapter, and I'll be the MC for the day. I'm so excited and honored to be able to present our most excellent panel speakers that we have. A lot of you in attendance today will probably look back at this and say, man, I was actually at that event in 2017. It's really a big deal. And those that didn't make it, well, we will be recording it and they can buy it later. Now, some of you may be thinking, I've heard a lot about MDRT, but I don't really know what it's all about. Why does everyone talk about it so much? To put it simply, it's a group of top financial professionals from around the world, and they've come together not only to make their own businesses better, but actually become better people. And what they do is they share their ideas with everyone else that's around them. You can ask anyone there any question that you'd like. Sorry, is my volume okay? And they're willing to share. They're willing to share any ideas at any time. When I came up with the idea for this, I thought, what's something that's never been done before? I've never seen 5 presidents on one stage. What did I do? I just called up 5 presidents and said, would you like to come and speak? And they just said, yes, within one day. Nobody asked anything, they just said, we'd love to do it. We're going to help out an MDRT member. That's the type of people they are. And these people have fantastic businesses. To qualify for MDRT, roughly you need, let's say in the money business, for example, you need about $4 million in deposit, just as an opener. Or $229,000 in life premiums. That's not override, it's just premiums. The next level is called core to the table, which is 3 times that. So a significantly larger amount of business you have to do. Top of the table is double that, so that's 6 times qualifications. Every single speaker we have here is a top of the table member. They have very large practices. Do you think we can learn something from these people? Because I certainly do, and I can't wait to get them up here. I did a quick calculation before everybody came up on stage. And there's a staggering 197 years of MDRT qualifications sitting right there at that table. And 112 of those are top of the table. I mean, absolutely mind-blowing numbers. So, you're tired probably of hearing me already. So without much further ado, I'll introduce everyone to come up on stage and we'll have a nice little panel discussion. So first of all, we have 2016 President Brian Eckert of Nashville, Illinois. We have 2007 President Phil Harriman of Falmouth, Maine. (2002) President Marvin Feldman. 2014 President Mickey Hosley, and her partner Matt Hosley. And 2008 President and the only Canadian here, Jim Rogers of Vancouver. So we're going to have kind of an open discussion here on the panel, and everyone's going to just answer questions honestly. If anything comes to mind yet, you don't have to put your hand up and, on Smart of Bible, but yeah, we're just going to kind of get an idea of how everyone runs and what they think of what's going to be happening in the future. So first of all, I'd like to direct the first one at Jim, if you wouldn't mind, seeing as you're Mr. Canada representing here. So you're a member of Advocis, you're a member of KLU, you've been a member of MDRT for years. Why do you belong to all three, and what's the big difference between them?
That's a great question. In fact, what I have noted over the years when I talk to people about not coming to the roundtable meeting, I ask them why, and they say, well, I go to a lot of meeting conventions. And I think KLU and Advocis for us Canadians are the equivalent in my mind of the roundtable, which to me is an expression of misunderstanding what each of those organizations provide. And to me, Advocis is an organization that represents us as people in the so-called financial services business and does a great job, particularly at the provincial level. KLU at the federal level, of course, represents us to the tax department, to finance, and to the government of Canada. Excellent and necessary services that they don't provide. The roundtable, on the other hand, provides a distinct and separate set of benefits, primarily motivation and inspiration. And then I get people who will say, well, I don't need motivation. I've been around for a long time, yada, yada. Listen, you do need motivation all the time and inspiration. However long you've been in the business, because you get jaded, you get sort of sloppy. And the roundtable, I think, keeps you on top and motivates you to do the best you can do every single year.
Awesome, thank you. And for those in attendance, this is actually one for all of you. We'll probably split on the line here for this one. But for those in attendance who haven't actually had a chance to go to an annual meeting or understand what MDRT is all about, can you explain what makes it so special to you and why would someone want to join? So maybe, Brian, if you want to kick that off.
I'll just piggyback on Jim's comments. In the United States, we have NAFA, and I've said before that NAFA keeps us free from regulation in our industry, and MDRT keeps our minds free from limitation. And I think one of the biggest advantages of attending many meetings is not so much the ideas you'll hear, but the ideas you'll share. Because somebody in this audience today needs to hear what you have learned over those many, many years in this business. And attending keeps that communication going from time to time. As far as MDRT and the annual meeting, I think the one thing that it provides is a network of the best. People who are dedicated not only to their profession, they're full-time, they're involved in what they do, and they show up and they work. That's the production. But more importantly, it was brought to my attention by my son, who's an engineer, and he attended a couple of things as a family member with me over the years, and he says, you know, what makes MDRT so unique is that nobody's here to bring you down. Your speakers, the people I talk to in the hall, everybody in attendance wants me to do better, and I'm just your son. He said, no wonder you've been going for 30 years.
I actually graduated with a degree in business and I majored in insurance. So when I got into this profession, I just assumed that everybody wanted to buy our products. I didn't realize that 90% of the people I spoke with politely and some not politely said no. And this business was beating me down. And I remember picking up the Sunday newspaper and when no one was looking, I was scanning through the want ads looking for a job. And it wasn't until one of my colleagues said, Phil, give it all you've got, give it one more year, and if you can't make it to the $1 Million Round Table, you probably ought to keep looking for those want ads. And so, fast forward to 1983, I've been in the business about 4 years. I barely qualified for the first meeting in Dallas, Texas. I sat in the back of the room, and I was in awe of what I saw and what I heard. All that Brian just said is true, and in fact, the ideas, the willingness to share, the ability to see that you and I aren't in this business to play numbers games and close deals, but to build relationships and clienteles that last a career. And I attribute my success today, in particular, to a Canadian by the name of Hal Zlotnick from, I think he's in your area of the country, Jim, recently passed away. He was the one from a $1 Million Roundtable meeting who helped me see that we should be doing the listening. We should be asking the leading questions to figure out what motivates our clients to take action. That one encounter enables me to sit here today. And I know each and every one of us would say something out of each meeting that we went to, we were able to take away that helped us build our practice today, which frankly is why 5 past presidents are happy to be here with you today, because we want to give back to the people who gave to us.
My background was a little bit different because I grew up hearing about the $1 Million Roundtable, but really didn't know and understand what it was until I attended my first one. But most of you probably think I was an overnight success. That gentleman was my father, therefore it's in my blood to be successful. The first 2.5 years, I struggled like Phil, because I was calling him the marriage and births, etc. And I really didn't like the rejection. When I finally got to MDRT, which took me 7 years, by the way, and I spent 5 years in management, so when I got to MDRT for the first time, I realized that everybody else had the same problems and the same issues. And it turned out that MDRT was like a big international study group. And I was able to meet people and ask questions and say, what do you do when? What do you do if? Can I call you if I have a case that I have problems with? My wife always said when I came back from an MDRT meeting, my batteries were recharged. My batteries were recharged because that's what it did for me. And it gave me the opportunity to meet so many people like you, where I could pick up the phone and say, I got this case. What do you think about this? And everybody is willing to share. In any other industry, that would be called industrial espionage. But in our industry, it's just called the willingness to share and give back and how to make all of you and all of us successful. That's what MDRT is all about.
Okay, I went to MDRT every year for the dancing. It is partially true. If you think about the story of someone finding the magic lamp, and that they would have that lamp and rub it, and a genie would come out and they'd grant them a wish, I have always felt that MDRT is my magic lamp. And every year, before I would go to the meeting, I would go for some reason. And every year was very different. Some years was just to feel like what I was doing was good and valuable. Some years it was to actually learn something like, I really want to get in this area, I need the expertise, I need to talk to people who are really good at that. But whatever it was, I decided before I went to the meeting what my very best wish was that I wanted to accomplish. And every single time it came true. Whatever I went for and sought, it was there for me. And the only reason that our practice has gotten to where it is and our clients are as happy as they are is because of MDRT.
the biggest thing that I've learned from MDRT is that there are infinite ways to be successful in our business. And what works for me might not work for someone else, and vice versa. But what you do is you see ideas and take ideas from the best and mold that and figure out how you can make that work. And that's what's really helped me as I've grown in my career.
I couldn't help but notice that Phil said that one of the things that bothered him early on in particular was how often people said no to him, and how frustrating that was. Well, I'm here to tell you that nobody has ever said no to me. I have a lot of people who are still thinking about it. My first meeting was in 1974 at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami Beach, Florida, and I walked into the hotel having arrived by bus from the airport, all I could afford, first meeting, and I was surprised to see a man in the lobby around whom were literally 25, 30 people. And then he would walk a little ways and he'd talk throughout. And these people would follow him, much like a Pied Piper. And that man was John Savage. If you read no other book about people in the round table, get the book called The Easy Sale by John Savage. It's probably out of print, but you could get it through the round table. John Savage was somebody who when I walked into the hotel, I couldn't understand what these people were doing, and I followed them. And after about 30 minutes, I then took my luggage and went up to my room. If I had gone home that day right then, I would have paid for that meeting. So I thought, I'm not missing this meeting. And except when my wife was inconsiderate and was giving birth, I thought maybe I should stay home. I haven't. So the round table has done a wonderful number of things for me.
I believe that's called family planning, Jim. 4 kids, never missed a meeting. So how has your practice changed and evolved over the years, and how has your message changed to your clients? Who wants to go first?
I'll start. Only because I'm the oldest and most mature at the table. By age. My practice has gone through a series of transitions. I started as a brand new agent, finally made MDRT, left management with New York Life, went back to my father's practice when my mother was diagnosed with cancer and passed away. We built our initial practice in East Liverpool, Ohio, and at one point we had about 50 people on staff. And at that point, I realized I was spending all of my time
write the check. I want to look someone in the eye and make sure they're making a good decision. I don't believe that's going to go away. I sit with each of our new employees and I give them a little history of how LaBelle and Harriman went from a couple of agents barely surviving in a general agency to an independent practice. And I described to them how we used to go to payphones and call in and get our messages read to us by a secretary who had it on paper. And they look at me like I'm a faucet. But it seems like yesterday. And I think if there's one thing I can impress upon you is that while the way in which people make decisions has changed rapidly, their desire for more high touch as we become more high tech is going to remain. And as long as you're focused on that high touch with people when they make that most important decision, your future is brighter than ever.
The biggest thing that has changed in my practice has been the progression from product to advice. And we've disengaged from the product as a revenue source to the product as a solution to a problem. And in the United States, as it is in Canada, the revenues generated by the various products just simply pay the bills. But when my practice took a significant leap is when we started with an advice-based approach. And it's really tough if you've made hundreds of phone calls in your early career and you're dying for that next sale mentality to transition to one of pure advice in which you may never sell a product, but help the client acquire products, maybe even from a competitor, and just choose to build, is when my practice really expanded and when the assets under management went up and the life insurance sales went up along with it. And it's tough. I'm watching my 23-year-old son, who's 9 months into the business, go through the trials and tribulations of a brand new agent, and trying to think back what it would be like if I didn't have, or if I didn't have the technology he has, which is both a boom. He can text people for an appointment, but you also can't call just anybody because we have do not call list, and almost everybody in the United States is on a do not call list. So trying to get him to understand that the product is just a means to a solution which pays him a compensation. It's not the reason for the call. And in 9 months, he's made a pretty good transition. So I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Of those almost 200 years, I've kept 9 of them. So I'm probably not as far into the transition and changing things. But I have learned, there's a couple things that really stand out that I've learned in those couple of years. And I think the first one that was a huge game changer for me was learning not to chase prospects. There's so many people out there that need our advice and want to work with us. And then there's so many people out there that just keep stringing you along and stringing you along. And even if you know they should do something, they're probably never going to do it. So just move on and get out of your own way on that. The other big game changer for me, I think, was to think bigger. Because at some point, I realized that it's almost the same amount of work if you're completing an application for a $20 million client as it is for a $20,000 client. And if you can add 1, 2, 3 zeros to the stuff you're working on, it's a huge, huge increase in everything that your business does.
I started in this business following 6 months as a so-called economist after I finished university. And my work as an economist was for a steel company. Turns out what I was doing was counting ingots and sweeping the floor. Anyway, I had a friend in the insurance business and I went to talk to him because he's the only salesperson I knew. And he talked me into talking to the branch manager who said, after I wrote the aptitude test, and some of you who might have been will recall this, he said, you know, you did very well in the aptitude test, but unfortunately, there's only one job for a salesman left in the province of British Columbia. Anyway, I got that job. Funny thing, he kept looking for other people for what the job was already filled. Anyway, I spent 3 months at the job, and I was taught black box selling, which I'll talk about today. And had I had to continue, I would never have been in the business. I started to look at other things as Phil said he did. As it happened, the agency boss came up from Toronto and says, how are you doing? And I said, look, I must tell you, I'm not happy. I'm probably going to leave. He said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I actually studied here at head office, and I know you have a marketing department. And I want to go to MBA school, and I go to the UT at night, so I wouldn't mind working there. And anyway, he said, after checking it out, he said, well, we have a job for you there, but you can't start yet. You can start in exactly 1 year. But in the meantime, here's how much you have to sell. And the reason I wanted to do that was I was going to work with a bunch of actuarial students and others, A-heads. And he said, we need somebody in there that can sell, because those guys develop new products, but we need somebody that can take them on the road to our agencies and describe them to our agency people and help them sell. We needed to show that you can sell. So you got to sell this much. And I did, and they did, and I moved it exactly 1 year. And it was a wonderful experience for reasons that I didn't count on. I got to work with the company was called Imperial Life. No longer in business, as you'll know, but not my fault. I had I worked with the very best salespeople they had, and frankly, the very worst. And the very worst sold the way I had been taught. And yet, when I looked at how the best people did it, I said, gee whiz, this makes the business so much different than I did. I could do that. And it won't surprise you to know that the very best guys were members of the roundtable. And one of the features that they shared, as was mentioned here earlier, was that they used their ears and their mouth in those proportions. They listen to what the prospective client was saying. They asked open-ended questions instead of questions that can be answered yes or no only. And they listened before they said anything of consequence, before they made any recommendation, much as a good physician does. They don't prescribe anything until they do some testing, ask some questions, and only then do they offer a potential solution. Our guys rush right in with the greatest things in sliced bread, and they try to jam the person into what I call a black box. And again, I'll talk about that later today. But that's what I did, and I thought, okay, I can do this. So I finished my MBA, and I developed a business plan while I was there, and said I'm going back to Vancouver and set up on the road. And I can talk about the development as a little bit, so I won't take too much time here.
I noticed one thing that hasn't changed with all of these people as well, which is pretty amazing. I mean, yes, they're at the top of their games, yet they're also writing notes from each other when they're talking. Everybody is always learning all the time. That's part of the secret, I think, is always learning from each other. Just kind of wanted to share that. I just noticed that as was going along. Next question is, where do you think the advisory business is headed in the future? What does it look like?
I really love that the advisory business is on the path that it is. And the reason is that what we've all found, and we've heard it from everybody here, is what made us successful was when we moved from product sales to advice. And so the evolution of the advisory business, that brought us to a whole new level of professionalism. And moving forward, I think that that's going to be even more the case. I think there's going to be a really wide divide between those who take this seriously and as professionals and go into a meeting with a client saying, we need to figure out, if you have any problems and if you do, what they are, and then look at all the multiple solutions and then let me help you with whichever one you choose. So I see, of course, we all talk about regulation, and I'm sure that that's an issue, but one of the great things that I got out of the roundtable is we have members everywhere. And so when we started looking at heavier regulation in the US, I spent a lot of time talking with a couple of agents from Australia, Sue Patterson and Ross Vanderwolf, and they'd been through all this. And you know what they told me? They said instead of just doing what's required with all this new regulation, take it one step further. So let me give you an example. We're required to do certain things, they were required to do certain things. They said, but instead of just those, you know, all the work we do behind the scenes, all the things that we do getting prepared, looking at this option, this option, this option, and we end up only showing them, you know, the one we're recommending. They said, no, now what they do is they go through everything that they've done on their behalf, all the things they've looked at, and explain why those weren't chosen and why those weren't recommended. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make is that we deliver something to the client already done and they don't see everything we do behind the scenes. So we've been making a concerted effort when we do stuff for clients, even though they don't have to act on it, to call them and tell them what we did and that they don't have to act on it. Because otherwise, if we don't let them know what we do, how will they know to appreciate all the work we do on their behalf?
I think the future of the advisory profession has never been brighter. And each of us as past presidents of the roundtable are reminded that we are the second best president who ever served. And as the second best president in 2007, I'm most proud of introducing the initiative called Boomer Retirement, where we recognize that the largest segment of our population was moving into their mid-50s, 60s, and beyond. And it has been the largest intergenerational shift in the history of humankind. And it's going to continue for about another decade. I think the statistic in my country is about 8,000 people every day wake up to their 65th birthday. And if you think about that, it's one of those, I haven't reached it yet, but I'm told that it's one of those milestone birthdays where you recognize that more of your years are behind you than are in front of you. And you ask, what has my life been worth? Will I live out my retirement years in financial dignity? Will my grandchildren or great-grandchildren even know who I am? And it's a very different time in life where they want to get serious about life's meaning to this point and going forward. And so what I think works best for us is that we're in the people business, and we also have deep technical knowledge across a wide variety of financial tools. Most of our competition doesn't have that. We have something very unique and a skill set that sets us apart from others. So I believe that as long as you're seeing good quality people, I couldn't agree more with Matt and his comments about who you spend time with, but also the ability to sit down with clients and help them take what is complex to them and show them that you have the skill and experience and ethics to guide them through that. And like Nikki just suggested that we used to do a lot of work for free, right? We do all the fact-finding analysis and we come up with a good recommendation and we say, our recommendation is that you do this or that. And if they said yes, we got paid. And if they said no, we didn't get paid. And in my practice, we have changed that model. It's not perfect yet, but I will tell you that between the number of people who want to get ready for retirement and what that means, we have 2 proprietary systems that we charge for that helps people in their 40s or so who are ready for college tuition and weddings and so forth. We have a system called Achieving Retirement Clarity. And for people who are older, we have a system called Retirement Income Security Kit, known as RISK. And it is is a very well thought through process that helps guide people to map, to help them reach that financial dignity that they crave. And they want to find someone like you that they can instill their trust and confidence in. And so too, at least in our practice, and I suspect yours as well, there's a lot of family businesses that are having these very same discussions, and they're more complex. Because it's family, business, emotion, money, all wrapped into one conversation, one room. And we have the skills and experience to help them sort this out, not by calling balls or strikes, but to help them consider different options. And we do that on a fee basis. This year I billed probably $125,000 to $150,000 in fees, helping family businesses sort through their options and choices. And you know what happens? When they get towards the end and they make choices, they're more than happy to implement them with us. I think the future has never been brighter for the advisory business.
Thanks, Tom.
I think again, I'm 100% behind the future. We're brighter than ever, it's better than ever. And the mindset shift is disengagement from services provided and how you get compensated. And I always ask people the question, would you do what you do if the products paid you zero commission? Would you sell the products you sell if it paid zero commission? And if you had to bill for it? Well, around the world, that's the question a lot of advisors have to answer. And if you can say yes to that and find another way to add value to the client, again, our practice took off when we had open disclosure. We tell the clients what we do, everything down to the trips we qualify for. We sit on a fiduciary side and we just tell them, hey, here's what we're going to make. I can't control what the company charges you for my commission on a life insurance product or disability product. That's set by state regulation. But I choose to give you value in excess of that, and then we get a lot up front, but we're going to have to work on retainer for years after that, because there's a lot of service between now and when you die. And if you could give me a contract on when you die, I can tell you how much I need to bill you. So what we do is we take that discussion into assets under management and the reason we charge fees. I've had pressure on the advice, and people say, well, you know, I could get that from Schwab for half that price. I said, well, our 136 includes about 75% of that is for advice, 25% of that is for the investment management. Investment management you can do on your own. We do it a little bit better than you could because we have an independent approach to your money. But we bill about 75% of our fee goes towards the advice that we give and the knowledge we give. And it's up to you to use that fully, because we're not discounting it if you never call us and use it. And again, it's those kind of discussions, open about the money, very much in the forefront of the interview, where we have gone significantly towards an advice-based practice and had substantial growth by doing it.
We transitioned our practice back in the late 70s into financial planning practice, where we started charging fees. What I found very quickly was the old clients I had didn't want to pay fees because they were already getting it for free. New clients were not a problem, because we told them we do this on an hourly basis, or we negotiate a flat fee. But we need to get paid for our time, irrespective of what your decisions are. And we work the same as the CPAs and the attorneys. Absolutely no problem with that. We did set up our fee practice so that if there was a commission sale, those commissions offset the fees, and our agreement specifies that. Approved by the broker-dealer. Phil and I use the same broker. It's amazing how many times we would go through the process, and our process, because of the level of people we were working with, normally took 6 months to a year from the time we had our first meetings until we actually delivered the product or resolved the issues that needed to be taken care of. And in almost every close where we were implementing and delivering our solutions, they grab a checkbook and say, okay, I know you charged me, how much is my fee? And I'd say, well, you know, this was a commission-based sale. We received enough commissions to offset your fee. You don't know it's anything else. And they go, really? And all of a sudden, the value of your services became that much more important. yes, like everybody else, we do charge fees for ongoing maintenance and all the other things that happen. But you have to set yourself apart from everybody else, because the entire industry is going towards fees. Now, there's something you should know. How many of you know who LIMRA is? Life Insurance Marketing Research Association out of Canada. They did a study in the United States to determine what level of fees the typical consumer would be willing to pay. Anybody want to take a guess on how much they'd be willing to pay for, say, 1 hour of consulting? $75. And they would only pay for 1 hour of consulting. Another group of people said they would pay up to $100 per year for ongoing consultation. I don't think there's many of us here that can afford to work for $100 a year for ongoing consultations with clients. It does force you to look at the different level of prospect. Those people who can actually afford to write checks, which is where we're all working now. So it's really no different than what you've been doing. But if you haven't been asking for the fees, you need to start doing that, because the entire industry is going that way. And the companies, because I get in to see a lot of companies as the CEO of Life Advocis. A lot of the companies out there are talking about putting in fee-only products that are designed for on the shelf and ready to go. A lot of the companies are looking at levelized commission products that are designed for on the shelf, they're ready to go. If we're not prepared to roll with those types of changes and implement those changes with our clients, we'll have a problem. The people sitting in this audience, you're sitting here because you are the innovators. You're accustomed to making changes. You're accustomed to rolling with the punches. You know how to adapt. So I don't think you're going to have any problems. But I'm not saying it will be easy. There will be changes you have to do. There will be times when you say, I don't like this. I don't enjoy this. I've been doing it for so many years, I don't like somebody that says no, even though all these are still waiting. But I think everybody here will be successful. The other thing to remember is, and I'm just going to deal with the United States, I don't know the numbers here. In the United States, we're going to have about 40% of our quote-unquote advisors and insurance people retire over the next 8 to 10 years. If you run the numbers, there are about 1.7 million insurance agents, licensed people in the United States. Only about 250 to 300,000 are actually in business. So 120,000 a year are going to disappear. The retention in our industry is still only 15% after 4 years. So we have to replace 12,000 a year just to stay even over a 10-year period. Work the numbers backwards at 15%. How many people do actually need to hire them? 80,000 a year. How many people is the industry truly hiring, including P&C agents? According to LIMRA, 30,000 a year. That's not going to change. The population is growing. The needs of the population are growing by about $320 billion of insurance needs per year. There's about $18 to $20 trillion of unmet needs today. The opportunity for those of us that are in the business to transition and learn how to do the things in the best interest of our clients is huge. The opportunity for new people coming in is huge. This is a great time for all of us. Don't be concerned that we're going through the transition. It's just another stage in the career.
Brian first mentioned this among us today, that is the move from product to device. I think that move is going to continue, and the rate at which it continues is going to accelerate. Unfortunately, in Canada, certainly true therefore in this province, we are regulated not by the advice we give, but by product. Securities commissions, insurance councils, and the like. We're regulated by product. We should be regulated by advice. Doctors are not regulated by prescriptions. They're regulated by behavior. Until that happens, we have a fundamental systemic problem. I'm hoping that people like Rick Lowe decide to go into provincial politics, because Ontario is the lead jurisdiction in terms of these changes. And if Ontario doesn't change, the rest of the country isn't going to change. You can see that in attempts to have a national securities regulator, and it'll continue as long as we have provincial regulations covering insurance, federal regulations covering banking, and never the twain shall meet because of jurisdictional issues. It's a constant fight. And I don't know what it's going to take to break the law, Jim. I will say on the matter of regulating advice, Ireland is a country that I think, having been there on the Advocis roundtable, gave me what I think is the best model. In Ireland, there are any number of designations that you can get where the pedagogy of the courses is deemed to be worthwhile. You know, the CLU would be one that we're familiar with, but there are others, of course. And in Ireland, they had an expert panel decide which courses were such that, and designations you achieved for taking those courses, that you could hold out as a, they call it, qualified financial advisor. And they sort of rubber stamp certain courses, and they continue to look at new courses as they come along. So we don't have any of these weekend specials that, you know, sometimes are, you know, causing people to call themselves whatever they really are. Now in Ireland, you have on your business card, letterhead, website, and so on, you can have the name of your company. You can have, following your name, the designations in letter form, so you know, CLU and the like. But the qualified financial advisor designation, which you earn beyond those, has to be written out in full. So it doesn't appear to be a designation as it would if it were QFA. And you must put that below your name, qualified financial advisor. So the public in Ireland knows that the person with whom they're dealing is a qualified financial advisor. To me, it is both profound and at the same time a simple approach. Getting there will be difficult. I give it to you that Ireland only has one country, you know, two categories of population, but they don't have provinces and states. That's where the problem comes in Canada, and I dare say as well in the U.S. On this business of working for free that Phil talked about, a bit gracious, I spent a lot of time working for free. In 1998, we decided to stop doing that. All our people at that point had or were getting their CFP, which were positioned as a financial advisory firm. And to be that, we had to have everybody get a CFP, and everybody has one or more, has a CFP, and in some cases a designation. And we said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to put value on our time. And the approach they use to this day is the same as the one we started then. And that is this: you say to the prospective client who comes into your office for the first time, or your assistant may say it to them, who does typically over the phone, or will say it in the literature we send them, that the first meeting is to our account. Notice I didn't say free. Or, a variation, we will absorb the cost of the first meeting. There are costs, the lights, there are people around, they can see all that. There's no free lunch. People know that in their head, and they also think, well, okay, if this guy isn't going to charge me something, he's got to be making money somehow. And sometimes it's never discussed. I think that's a mistake. I think transparency is the most effective sales tool you can have. Transparency. And yet, it's seldom employed. These folks talk about how they do it, and they discuss it fully. It's the way it should be. You know, my accountant, my lawyer, I'm going to find out what I have to pay them. I may not know it up front, but I'm going to get a bill. I'm going to find out. If you want to be measured in the same way and seen to be a professional, you've got to charge for your time. It's that simple. I mean, there's no crime in being a salesperson, but call yourself a salesperson if that's how you make your money. Nobody does. I mean, one fellow last night told me it's on his business card. I want to see it. Because I don't find a lot of people have salesperson on the business card. If that's what they do, you should have it there. Especially if they're not qualified to hold out as a financial advisor. Particularly if they're not qualified to hold out as a financial advisor. So, unfortunately in our country, anybody can hold out as a financial advisor, as you all know. So, the business is changing rapidly, and you need to keep your head up, your eyes open, your ears open. Pay attention to being on the leading edge and find out how to differentiate yourself
favor of being seen to be an advisor as opposed to somebody who makes some money selling products. No crime in that. We make more money selling products than anything else. But that comes after the initial meeting, which gratis, and we say we get paid for these products for looking after them and for looking after your financial plan. First meeting is to our account.
We have time for one more quick one. I know part of it has been covered a little bit, but really, what are the main factors that really elevated your businesses to the next level? Who wants to start?
Well, I'll start real quick. When I started in business, I just graduated from Ohio State. That was so long ago that it's changed its name to the Ohio State. It wasn't the Ohio State then. And I started in an office that was 200 miles from my father's because I needed to prove to myself and the industry that I was either going to succeed or fail on my own. Didn't know anybody when I graduated. My wife was still in college. She was getting a degree in pharmacy, which didn't happen. She switched to early child development because she needed to take care of me. So I started talking with returning servicemen. I talked to newly married people buying homes. And I was prospecting at that level. So I was selling at that level. And a $50,000 face amount policy was a huge policy for me at that time. When I went back to my father's operation in 1974, the first thing that happened to elevate my thinking was my dad said, I called on somebody that I don't think I'm going to get along with. I think you'll do better. Here's the illustration, go deliver it. And I looked at it, and I held it up, and it said, $1 million of debt benefit. That was 20 times more than anything else I'd ever sold. $1 million. And I went, and I delivered the illustration. That was the only thing that happened. There was no sale, because I was scared to death about the size of the policy. So I learned very quickly, and Matthew mentioned this, I learned very quickly that adding a zero, increasing the level of what you're looking at, increasing the size of the awareness of the individual to the problems that need to be solved, was in my head, not the prospect's head. So I learned very quickly to prospect in the upper markets, because I wanted to do estate planning and business succession planning. And think in terms of one more zero, as you mentioned. So the $1 million case became a $10 million case because I was trying to solve not only today's problems, but tomorrow's problems. And I'll talk about that because we need to solve for inflation. So I had to elevate my level of thinking, and my dad did that for me by throwing me into the fire. So he said the only good thing about that case was that I went. But it really allowed me to understand what he always said, and that was think big, just add a zero. Think big, add a zero. Sell for tomorrow, not just for today. I learned those things, and I transitioned my practice from here to there.
Real quickly, the one lesson I learned is that I went from hiring the people I could afford to hiring the people I could not afford to lose. And when I started adding smart people to my office, my practice took off, my time management went significantly better. So that's the one thing that I find that a lot of advisors, they hire the people they can afford, not the people they can afford, not afford to lose.
I struggled in the beginning with trying to be the person that my manager wanted me to be, or that the company I was affiliated with wanted me to be, and what I really liked doing and how I felt I should go forward. And so it wasn't, I was an okay producer, but I was trying to be what they thought I should be. And it wasn't until I decided that I could let go of that, and that's really hard. If you're a pleaser, it's really hard to, go against the people you respect and what they see as a vision for your future, and seek out your own vision. And so I, at that time, they not only did not count production in retirement plans, my manager thought it was such a bad idea that he subtracted it from my insurance production. But I loved retirement plans. I just had vision there. I wrote, I think, the very first 401k plan in our area, and probably the first one with our company. I loved it. And it wasn't until I let go and said, you know what, I don't care if I'm not on production sheets. If I see a vision, I want to go there. And every step along the way, when I started doing money management, oh my goodness, nobody wanted me to do money management. It's like it didn't fit anybody else's dream. But I did it, and that has made our practice so sustained, so much better. We've just gotten bigger and better at everything because we went in the direction that was right for us.
I'll go real quick. When I first qualified for MDRT, I thought I was set for life. And then same with core to the table, and then top of the table, and just like all of our retirement plan clients that we're working with, it's a constantly moving target depending on what inputs and assumptions you're using. So, I'm still working with things now. But part of that and growing from that is by being a sponge and surrounding yourself with these guys, because it's pretty amazing what you can learn. And one of the things Jim said about he's never heard no, that was a big change for me as well, when I realized that a lot of times, almost all the time, no really means not yet, or it's not a good time. Because we've had a lot of cases where we've suggested something for years and years and years, and then there was a trigger that said, okay, my father's in long-term care now, or my business partner got sick, or something like that gets people off the fence. So you have to still be there. You have to continue educating them and just be ready to go when they are, because a lot of times there's something that will trigger that, but it might be 5 years down the road.
First thing I would say is hire people that are smarter than you. For some of us, that's easy to do. In fact, I was blessed by hiring our CFO, who is there today, who came first in her class in commerce at UBC funding all that, 450 kids. She got first place marks when she became a CA. She was number 2 in Canada, number 1 in BC. She's brilliant. She worked for Jim Patterson during Expo 86, and I hired her as soon as the exposition was over. Best thing I ever did. Hire her. So short getting her. So do what you do best and delegate the rest. There are in our business folks that are characterized as finders, others as minders, and grinders. Same in the legal business. Finders, minders, grinders. The people who get paid the most are the finders. The people who are in shorter supply are the finders. There's a connection. You get paid the most if you're in the shorter supply. So if that's what, find out what you do best, and then hire the talent around you to fill the other gaps. I like finding. And if I found a prospect that I couldn't handle because it was something that I didn't want to handle, I thought, that it was an area that I had more expertise among my colleagues, or I just didn't want to deal with the person for whatever reason. I would lay the client off on this person and make the introduction and explain why. And the system exists to this day. I get 30% of all the revenue that ever came in from that client in perpetuity. And we would record on the system the person's social insurance number if that were an individual, or the corporate number, or the tax number if they were a corporation, so that I didn't lose my 30%. I was the highest paid person in the office per hour of work by taking 30% instead of 100%. 100% of nothing, last time I checked, is still nothing. We have a lot of people who won't share business because they think they're giving up something. You're giving up nothing if you share, and if some of the parts, you and your partner is greater than one, you get 30% for putting in far less time. So think about delegating. Do what you do best, delegate the rest. I wish I had this real quick.
Real quick, I would just add to what everyone else has said by saying, go have fun. Spend time with the people that you want to be around and specialize in that niche, and your knowledge in that relationship will make 1 + 1 = 3.
Thank you very much.